Hello, students. In this writing lesson, we're going to continue our work on main topic and important details. Your learning target is I can write the main topic and important details of a text. And your success criteria is I will know I am successful when I can write complete sentences to find the main topic and details in a text. We've been talking about the main topic, which is a few words that talk about what the whole text is about. And we talked about the title being a very important clue. We should always look at the title to help us understand the topic of the text. The supporting details are the facts and examples that talk about the topic, or they're what we learn about the topic. They're those little pieces of information. Today, we're going to read this article, and we're going to work together to come up with the topic of the text. One thing I learned and another thing I learned. These things I learned are the details. Then you're going to go back to Seesaw and you're going to do the same thing for the book we read in Reading Workshop. Remember, we read Rainbows, so pay close attention. And when I say pause the video, make sure you pause it and really be thinking about what's the topic and what are those key details. Here's the article. Tiny animals can be helpers. Many kinds of little bugs live in our world. Some tiny animals, such as ticks, can harm people. A tick can make people sick. Other tiny animals can help people. Ladybugs are helpers. People plant gardens. Some insects eat plants that people want to grow. Ladybugs eat bugs that harm plants. Ladybugs help people grow healthy plants. Bumblebees are helpers. Bumblebees fly to flowers to get food. Yellow dust called pollen is on the flowers. This dust gets onto the bees. Bees carry the dust to other plants. The pollen helps new flowers grow. Thank you, tiny helpers. Okay, so let's start by thinking about the topic of the text. What's the whole text about? Pause the video and think for a second. Okay, how'd you do? What's the topic? Well, remember, we need to look at the title. Tiny animals can be helpers, and then think, what does that have to do with the whole text? I know that this article talked about ladybugs and bumblebees and all these tiny animals that are helpers. So I think the topic is tiny animals help. So I have my sentence stem. The topic of the text is started. And you're going to write this sentence stem on your paper. I did that so we didn't waste time. The topic of the text is, notice I have finger spaces and I'm using my whole line and I'm starting way over on the edge. The topic of the text is tiny, and I have to spell it right because it's in the article. Tiny animals. Ooh, I'm not sure if I can fit animals, so I'm just going to put it here. Animals. Tiny animal. And you know what? I think I'm just going to put tiny animal helpers. Notice how I erased and left a space. Help tiny animal helpers. Period. Have to put a period. Okay. Now I need to come up with one thing I learned is, and this is going to be my fact. And I'm going to come up with another thing I learned is, and that's another fact. And these facts are going to be about tiny animal helpers. All right. So one thing I learned. I'm going to come back here to the text. Ladybugs help people. Oh, I remember. It was really important. Ladybugs help people grow healthy plants. So one thing I learned is ladybugs help. I'm not going to fit people there, so I'm going to come down here. People grow healthy. I have to spell it right because it's in the text. Plants. I'm going to put my period. Okay. One thing, and I always go back and read my writing, and that's a good idea for you. One thing I learned is ladybugs help people grow healthy plants. That's a detail about how tiny animals are helpers. Okay, now I'm going to write this word another, and I'm going to underline it here because this is what we call a linking word, and that's really important to link my words together. So I put another thing I learned is, what else did I learn about tiny animal helpers? Let me think. I'm going to go back to the text. What's another one of those little facts? Pause the video and see if you can find a fact, and then come back and see what I found. How'd you do? Well, I saw that this article talked about ladybugs, and it also talked about bumblebees as one of those tiny helpers, and that bumblebees help carry pollen from flower to flower. So I'm just going to put another thing I learned is bumblebees carry pollen. Is bumblebees, and it's one word, it's in the text, carry pollen. Period. Okay, now I'm going to reread my writing. Another thing I learned is bumblebees carry pollen. All right, I have the topic. I have one fact I learned or one thing I learned in the text. This is a detail. And another thing I learned, and that's a detail. I'm missing one thing. What do we always do when we write complete sentences? Yes, we always check for cups. So I'm just going to put it over here on the side, and I'm going to go through and check for the C. So I'm going to touch the capital at the beginning. Yep, there's my capital. There's my other sentence. Yep. And there's my last sentence. I can check off my capitals. Understanding. The topic of the text is tiny animal helpers. That makes sense. So, okay, I got to do all of them. The thing I learned is ladybugs help people grow healthy plants. That makes sense too. It's understandable. Another thing I learned is bumblebees carry pollen. Yep, that's understandable. Okay, I can check that off now. Punctuation. Got to go back. Let's see. There's my period. And I know it's a period, not a question. One thing I learned, I'm telling you what I learned, and there's my period. And another thing I learned is, there's my period. Okay, I can check off the P and my spelling. Well, I remember that when I was writing this and I wrote topic, I sounded it out. I went topic. And I know this is the red word that I learned, so I know that that's spelled correctly. So, and this is another red word. We learned this one, and this capital, I always capitalize I. Yep, I think my spelling is all correct. So I have my topic, my two details, and my cups. Now it's your turn. You're going to go to Seesaw. You're going to think about the book we read in Reading Workshop, and it is in Epic Books if you want to go read it. I have shared it with you in your library if you need the book, and that will help you. Remember, you're going to be writing the topic of the text is, what's the topic of this text? This text called rainbows. And you're going to write one important detail I learned is, and you're going to write another important detail I learned is. These sentence stems will be in Seesaw, and the book will be in Epic. Your job is to find the topic and important details in the text. That's our learning target. All right, have fun.